in my garbage truck. I'll never throw you away.
Hey everyone, this is Josh from before, and I'm here with McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batmobeast from Dark Knight's Death Metal, and this thing is a real beast. I gotta tell you, I got Death Metal Batman up here just to give you a sense of the scale. It's absolutely gargantuan. Before I get into evaluating this specific product, just from the standpoint of something this size at this price point, it was $80, which is a lot of money, but the potential to have a retail release of a vehicle or something else this substantially sized for this DC Multiverse line in general, it's pretty exciting. You don't have to think too hard about it to imagine some of the different Batmobiles and maybe Batcaves even that could be something this footprint, the sheer scale. It's pretty exciting to think about, as long as that potential product has an appropriate enough value to command an $80 price point. And whether or not this one does, we'll find out. Let's just take a quick look around the box here. It's huge, guys. This thing's huge. On the back, a good looking photo of the vehicle and a hint at the really exciting part, which is this roll cage and frame underneath here. So I think the only way to find out once and for all what the hell is this thing, we got to get him out of here, so let's go. Alright, let's look at this thing in 3 dimensions. Again, I cannot understate just how big this thing is. So to answer the big question, what the hell is this thing? I think I have a 3-part answer. Part 1 is this is a character. It's not just a monster truck. This is Bruce Wayne from one of the corners of the dark multiverse. Long story short, his consciousness is inside a monster truck now. He's the Batmobeast. And he showed up in like all of 3 pages of Dark Knight's Death Metal. Just yet another amusing sort of weird Bat variant. Pretty funny gag. I don't think anyone ever thought that we'd be getting Batmobeast, and here he is. Definitely file this under something that nobody asked for. But sometimes those characters that nobody asked for end up being really awesome. I never would have thought to or wanted to ask for Death Metal Batman, but this guy's, out of sight. Never would have asked for Last Night on Earth Straight Jacket Batman, but he's one of my favorite Batman figures of all time. So they want to throw some weird stuff at us. Okay, I'm game. I'm open to that. But anyway, as a character, if you want to call this a giant action figure, you could. I wouldn't want to judge it on that criteria, because beyond just the scale, he's got a whopping like 4 points of articulation. 5, I guess, if you count the steering wheel. As far as judging this on the grounds of being an action figure, okay? Something about vehicles and stuff, when they're rendered in a comic book, you can kind of break the physics a little bit, or the continuity of how it's rendered. So you got the way Capullo drew this on the cover here. It's at the truck's on a incline, and yet the forward leaning shape of the car really gives it a lot of attitude. Whereas later in the comic, he doesn't exaggerate that shape quite as much. He can change it based on the composition or attitude that he wants to render in the artwork. This, a physical truck in 3 dimensions, can only exude so much personality, and they've got a bit of a forward lean, but you can't quite emphasize those different kind of moods. So it could have potentially been interesting to have maybe this whole shell on a sort of rocker that could cock, maybe forward, lean, that way, but lean back. Just maybe one more extra play feature to emphasize that we want to give this truck some character and some personality. So you're saying, okay, yeah, that's a stretch. It's not a figure. It's not an action figure. It's a vehicle. Right. Okay. So let's address part 2 of what the hell this thing is. A vehicle. It's definitely a vehicle. It's got 4 rolling wheels. It's got this thin body on it that has the shadows and the highlights of the paint are baked into this shell, which gives it kind of this ink blotty look. It looks like he just like accidentally drove over a Venom symbiote kind of. I hope in the future, like if they give us more vehicles, they find out a way to give us this kind of paint on the vehicle body. You know, like we got this Batmobile 66. It's just bare plastic. It's kind of shiny, but not shiny in the way that paint is shiny. It would just be nice if maybe in the future they want to give us something like this, and maybe a little bit more of that $80 goes to nice vehicle quality paint jobs. I mean, this is okay. It's whatever. It's awfully flimsy. The headlights and the glowy eyes are just, again, baked into this. They're, drawn on, painted on, essentially. Again, I would like maybe, actual working functional lights would be a good selling point in it, $80 sort of package. So for that to be missing is a bit unfortunate. I do like these spiderweb cracks in the windshield and on the windows, even in the back window here. Looks pretty nice, but if this shell were all it was, I would be really underwhelmed by this whole thing and not really have much of a taste for it at all. Fortunately, that's not all it is. It's got a cage underneath, so by removing these little pins back here, which these pins are a nice touch, I gotta admit. That's a fun little detail. Have those functional pins connecting the body to the chassis. Okay, now we're talking. Now this is where the fun part starts for me. Pop that vent right back on there. Okay, now I'm starting to feel like I can see where some of this $80 went. This fully sculpted out roll cage, chassis, engine, truck bed. No, it's not rendered at the level of detail that I would really love to see. It doesn't have the paint job I would really love to see. But I think it has a lot more life and potential than the shell. So we'll continue to evaluate it as a vehicle by putting Batman, Death Metal Batman in here to drive it. Let's see how he works. All right, he's in there. It's definitely a vehicle. Death Metal Batman in there driving. It rolls forward and back. I sure do wish these front wheels turned. That would be another great thing to give it more personality, so then I could give it better marks as a figure and a vehicle both. And I threw that shell back on real quick just for a minute, just so you can see Batman in there. And it becomes pretty hard to see. It is a vehicle. It sure is a lot of shelf space for a vehicle with one pilot. And the wheels roll, but they don't turn or do anything like that. And honestly, like I've been to Target in the past week and I've seen multiple RC monster trucks that are this size, if not maybe bigger, for $60, for less than this. So judging it as an action figure, judging it as a vehicle, having a hard time justifying the value. And if you're looking at this thing as just having to complete your Dark Knight's figures, I think it's going to come in and be a little underwhelming. But I don't think that's the full potential of what this thing can be. Take this shell back off. And where I'm arriving at is to get the full potential out of this thing, you have to look at it as a play set. Not just a character, not just a vehicle. This is a play set. It's only really going to come to life when you start hanging different figures on this. Okay, now we're on to something. Now I'm starting to see where the real potential for this thing is. And I know this thing was kind of meant to be driven by Death Metal Batman, but I threw Sky Tyrant in here. I got Superman, and now Death Metal Batman's hanging on the back. And yeah, this was meant for Death Metal theoretically, but I say throw whoever you want on there. Make this thing as big of a party as you possibly can. You don't have to be beholden to any particular canon. You're just having as much fun as you possibly can with this thing. If you're not having a big wild party like this, and I don't think the value is going to come in for you at all. And even like this, usually when you see a monster truck, it's not just necessarily like flat on four wheels. The cool thing the monster truck is like, getting big air either this way or he's coming crashing down this way. So I'm wondering if there's any way we can do that. Give it a little bit of a... What does that do? Does that do anything? You can bring it to life a little bit like that by having it. Little things like that will bring it to life, you know, a bit more if you're trying to display it with some more pizzazz than just being like flat on the ground. I was thinking maybe I could try one of these flight stands. This is pretty good too. I've got this on 2 different little risers. So here I've got 2 different sized risers on each of those tires, and that gives it a little bit of lift and a little bit of life. Pretty cool, but if you're not able to do this and really give this thing this like space that it needs, then it's really just going to become a great big thing that you don't know what to do with. Here we go. Here's even more nonsense. Threw a bunch of Spawn figures on there. Again, you don't have to commit to any one thing. Just have to have the biggest party that you possibly can. Joker getting pancaked down there. If you're not doing something like this, if you're just going to have it on your shelf flat on all 4 wheels, taking up a ton of space and just having that boring shell on top, I would not advise getting it. I would only advise picking this thing up if you're really going to go wild with it. Well, just for size, let's compare this to some other vehicles here. Actually, let's put this on all 4s. Just the size, again, ridiculous. And if you have this Bat Cycle already that's meant to go with Death Metal Batman, you kind of have a, you know, Death Metal Batman spoken for already, and another reason to throw different guys on this. And you can see it here next to the Batten Cycle. I mean, really, honestly, you want to talk about value. This is a $20 figure. Is this more than 4 of these? Yes, it sure is. I mean, one of these tires is damn near as big as an entire figure. And that's the front smaller tire. That's the Batmobeast, guys. As a character or a figure, not a lot to offer. As a vehicle, certainly it is a vehicle, a good one at that. But it really only comes to life when you turn it into a playset and you make this a big focal point by adding characters hanging out on it and partying. Do I wish it was a little bit better quality plastic? Sure. Do I wish maybe there was a little bit more paint and details on this plastic? Yeah, I do. But just what they're delivering, the scale of it, I think the value is there once you tap into using it as a playset and filling it out with characters. And if you're not going to do that, I don't advise getting this. It's not going to fit on that IKEA shelf. You're going to have to come up with some sort of solution. It's not going to fit on like floating shelves up there or anything like that. This is going to require quite a bit of space and probably some sort of permanent stand base. And I think it has an incredible amount of potential value as a customization piece. I'm going to start looking into maybe like 1/12 scale or I don't know what all is out there, maybe 1/10 scale model cars, you know, like old Cadillacs, and look into turning this into something that's really Mad Max Fury Road, kind of a wasteland vehicle with different sort of mismatched, kit-bashed, classic car pieces hanging off that are rusted out. And that's what I want to do with it. I'm sure there are people that are more talented than me that are already thinking of doing the same thing. And my prediction is that somebody is going to do a really dynamite custom one of these, maybe down the road, a year or two, you know, once everyone's kind of forgotten about this. And then when they do that, everyone's going to see it and be like, oh, I need one of those so bad. And by that point, everyone will have made fun of this and forgotten about it, and they'll be hard to find. So I'm happy to have one right now, even though $80 is a big price to ask. If you're on the fence, if you're feeling pressured to just be a completionist and pick this up, do not do that. You don't need it. You don't need to spend $80 on just a great big thing that's going to take up shelf space unless you're really jazzed about doing something like this. If you're not really going for this, wait. See if they do a Keaton Batmobile. See if they do a comic Batmobile or something that tickles your fancy more. You do not need to get this if you're not jazzed about it. That's all it comes down to. But man, these tires are gonna look so killer with like a dry brush. Make them look dusty and dirty. Oh, I can't wait to play with this and throw many more characters on here. This is a blast. I love it. It's stupid, but I really love it. And I think I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye.